And finally, Yasu is going to talk about different cultures on the way that ecologists work. Here we go. Thanks, Yasu. Last one.
Last one, yeah, of course, yeah. But my talk is more delicious than your lunch. So, okay. Okay, anyway, so yeah, allow me if time goes over, but I'm kidding. So yeah, I do research cross-culturally, and I think thankfully that Mariam noted that I'm going to talk about cross-cultural research, and also Steen this morning talked about like global inspire skills of cross-culture thing, and then said my name. So I hope Google Scholar had it and counts one citation of my research. But yeah, and I have some affiliations in different countries. Anyone from Japan here today? Two. Okay. Anyone? Yokoso. Welcome. Okay. Anyone from Azerbaijan today? Zero. All right. As you can see, that yeah, those countries probably are not so much here yet, but hopefully, yeah, okay, we have some connections. And I'm going to talk about Recovery College cross-cultural global studies. And there are 7 studies completed, and 1 that's ongoing. And after that, I'm going to talk about the future direction of our global studies. And study 1 to study 4 are about operational model, whether there is any cultural biases or cultural tendencies in our model. And then 5, 6, 7 are about implementation, how it's advertised. When you want to convince your funder, how do you want to convince those funders? So first study is that 28 countries, 221 recovery colleges published in Lancet. What we found here is that fidelity means that if recovery colleges are operated as planned, if I talk my son how to eat sushi, he has high fidelity of eating sushi in the right way, kind of thing. And yeah, and then what we found here is that fidelity was regionally different. European countries scores high, and non-European countries scores low. But this doesn't really offer us solutions. Should we all move to European countries? That's not really a good solution. So we make one step closer of looking at the culture, how culture impacts fidelity scores. And then, unsurprisingly, we found 4 cultural characteristics that are linked to fidelity. We tested 6. But those 4 came out significant. Individualism, probably you know that, and indulgence means that how much enjoyment is allowed in the culture. On the other hand, other side is restrained culture. So, one practical way for me to understand the culture of this sense in city is that if you go out to city and see how many people are kissing in public, that's kind of indulgent culture, allows kissing in public. But in Japan, for example, restrained culture, you don't see people in kissing. Yeah, my wife is Dutch, so I went to Netherlands, and people were kissing everywhere. Like, if you open closet, they're kissing. So that's very indulgent. And uncertainty acceptance is that how much culture accepts uncertainty. So England is very uncertainty accepting. They like to play by ear. They like to wing it. That's a good thing in this culture. So I only have 5 minutes, but I'm going to go like, next 60 minutes I'm going to talk about. And uncertainty avoidant culture wants rules before going into unknown situation. Country like Germany or Japan, they like rules before going into something. But in recovery college fidelity, those recovery colleges in uncertainty acceptance culture tend to score high on fidelity measure. Last one, short-term orientation. You want results now. That's short-term orientation. It's called spending culture. Long-term orientation culture is that you want to save now for the future reward. But in fidelity, we found that short-term oriented culture tend to score high in fidelity. And then those characteristics, you can see that, for example, examples of those countries, UK, America, Australia, Canada, Sweden, those kind of countries tend to have these tendencies. Anthropological view to that is that probably Protestantism country tend to have similar values. On the other hand, Catholic values maybe a little bit go against it. And unsurprisingly, if you look at number of recovery colleges in, for example, Spain or Italy, relatively Catholic-oriented, implementation hasn't gone so well, like 6 recovery colleges in Spain, 4 in Italy. So that may explain, if you bring this recovery college concept to Catholic values, they may feel like, oh, that's dangerous, kind of thing. So yeah, it's good to think about those cultures. So this kind of arrows shows, if society's values this way, it's like wind, and the recovery college's values are this way, you have against wind. I play baseball, and wind is very important. If wind goes this way, you're gonna hit the ball this way, so it flies far, kind of thing. So culture, when I teach culture is like a wind. And if your ball goes forward with the wind, of course your ball flies farther. But if your ball goes against wind, it doesn't fly that much. So it's good to think about how the context, how the culture, the value push is looking at. And then in cultural adaptation, it's also important to think about fit and fidelity balance. As a practitioner, you want to maximize the impact. That means fit to the people there. But you want to also keep the fidelity of intervention. So you need to take a good balance of fit and fidelity. And then we looked at process of research as well. Okay, I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to skip these kind of things. But process-wise, also, international research, it's very important to think about familiarity with research. For example, like in some context, maybe it's, if you interview here or if you interview at your kitchen, maybe your responses may be different. Or, for example, countries like Philippines, they have this social community talk as an interview method, because that way they can get more authentic responses. And then next, we looked at individual components of recovery college operation. So earlier study, we found that there is general tendencies, but what's the specific associations with, because through this, we can inform what part needs to change, kind of thing. And we looked at specific components. And we found that, 12 components, 7 of them are impacted by cultural characteristics. Means that there may be some kind of cultural preference of those components. For example, like co-production is very important, but impact of individualism and indulgence were positive. Means that the countries, recovery colleges in the country of individualism and indulgence tend to score high in co-production. So based on this, now we are making tools to correct it. More like a cultural inclusivity of tools. So, for example, currently in the scale, the words such as positive energy is used. But this is very culturally different to be perceived, positive energy, for those from America, positive energy. And then for, maybe, anyway. Okay, so, and the other things is that responsibility. This is also very different. Probably in this context, it's empowerment. You have responsibility. But good example is that in Japan, responsibility is taken very negatively. Like, our prime minister changes every month, and they take responsibility to leave their job. So, those words are very, and then, so, we are now making, revising the tool to make a culturally inclusive tool of global. And then, 45 seconds. Okay, so this is about implementation, text of recovery colleges, how recovery college is advertised across cultures. And this is inspired by, the Prius car. For example, in America, it's advertised, with Leonardo DiCaprio, driving Prius is cool. But in Japan, Prius goes through nature, by running, by buying Prius, so you are in the nature kind of thing. So we looked at how recovery college, same intervention, is advertised in different culture. And unsurprisingly, that text emphasis of recovery college in Japan were learning together. On the other hand, in England, it's about self-management, and in Japan, it's more about lifelong learning. And in England, it's more about skill acquisition. The emphasis were drastically different. And if you advertise that way, students expect that to recovery college and ask more of that. So that means their experience will diverge. So the more you go, the more experience maybe differ. And then from this means time is up. Okay, okay. So yeah, and then we do Dutch recovery courages as well. And then sorry, this is thank you. Okay. So future direction is that this is a map of linguistic distance. Means that, for example, if I say good morgen, probably Dutch people, Scandinavian people can understand it's good morning, right? Because the languages are similar. So this is called linguistic difference. But through data we have, we can create a cultural distance index in recovery. So which country are similar or different in terms of mental health recovery? And additionally, 2 steps. Okay, one last, okay, sorry, thank you. Yeah, additionally, this is a compass. So we only extract key variables in culture to inform which cultural adjustment recovery courage or recovery approach needs to make in order to get closer, get distance shorter. This is a cultural compass aspect. That's
we
all.
can read more, can't we, from your papers?
Yeah.
Which you put them in. Thanks
Yes,
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.